in those files, there's highly disturbing allegations of Donald Trump raping children, of Donald Trump threatening to kill children.
And that is House Democrat Ted Lieu of California reacting to the latest Epstein files released. Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. The allegations against Donald Trump are getting more disturbing by the day. It stems from this.
DOJ is releasing more than 3 million more pages of files, as well as images and videos.
Headline: New York Times uncovers 5,300 plus Epstein files mentioning Trump in exhaustive analysis. Here's Deputy Attorney General and former Trump personal attorney Todd Blanche.
I can assure that we complied with the statute, we complied with the act, and there is no, we did not protect President Trump, we didn't protect or not protect anybody.
Except that minutes after the files were posted, some of them were removed and replaced with this: page not found. That generated headlines including DOJ removes new Epstein files that mention wild Trump sex allegations, including rape. Some of the alleged Trump rapes, according to the files, included underage girls. Other files describe Mar-a-Lago calendar girls' parties that involved genital measurements for children. Jeffrey Epstein would bring the children in and Trump would auction them off. He measured the children's vulva and vaginas by entering a finger and rated the children on tightness.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else, really. You know, now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people.
Yes, even though news organizations have found 38,000 references to Donald Trump in the latest batch of the Epstein files, Trump claims this was all a conspiracy by Epstein and others. Never mind, of course, that by most accounts, including the files, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were the best of friends for more than a decade. When asked by CNN's Caitlin Collins about the Epstein survivors, Trump exploded.
Survivors. You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face. You know why? You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you.
On Fox News, Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General and former personal attorney Todd Blanche acknowledged there are a lot of references to Trump and his friends in the Epstein files. Blanche then offered an unusual defense.
It is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. And so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things. And if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look like that's all that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right.
And on top of the photos looking bad, Democrat Ted Lieu hammered Blanche's argument about it all.
I'm highly disturbed that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche just got the law wrong. Yesterday, he said, essentially, that it is not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's actually not correct. If Jeffrey Epstein was human trafficking minors for these sex parties, and you show up and patronize the establishment at that party, yes, you're guilty, because patronizing is part of the law, of the federal sex trafficking law. So Deputy General Todd Blanche just got that wrong, which maybe explains why they aren't investigating all these folks, including Donald Trump. He needs to read the law and investigate these people.
Another part of the law Congress passed, in addition to requiring the Trump administration release all the Epstein files, declared that victims' names and identifying information should be redacted or blacked out. But in the latest batch of documents released, there are many redactions missing that involve the victims, their names, and their images as underage girls.
They release a lot of pictures of minors unredacted, just violated the privacy of these girls. It is uncalled for what they did.
Here is part of the reporting from NBC News.
Some survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse pointing out missing redactions in the new files, including Danny Bensky, who says she was infuriated to see her own name, her own address, her own phone number unredacted.
I thought it was carelessness, and then I went to incompetence, and now it feels a bit deliberate. I feel like the Department of Justice has really made us feel unsafe.
An attorney for some survivors tells NBC News that she personally reported violations on behalf of more than 50 survivors so far. And in a letter describes some clients, Jane Does, who never planned on going public, who now say they're facing harassment and death threats.
Death threats now for the Epstein victims, and yet the names of the Epstein clients who abused the girls, well, those remain blacked out or still under seal at the Department of Justice. And what does Donald Trump say about the contrast?
A lot of women who are survivors of Epstein's are unhappy with those redactions that came out. Some of them, entire witness interviews are totally blacked out. Do you think that they should be more transparent?
The fact that they thought they released too much. You know, I heard that, and you tell me something else. No. I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else, really.
Move along, says Donald Trump. In a surprise move, Bill and Hillary Clinton, who are mentioned in a few of the Epstein files but are not accused of rape, have agreed to testify themselves to Congress. Their responsiveness to a congressional subpoena is already making the congressional investigation awkward for Donald Trump and congressional Republicans, because Trump has not agreed to testify and Republican committees have not even considered asking Trump.
President Trump's name is mentioned more than 1,000 times in these documents. Why not try to get more information from him? Try to get him to testify.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that every time you all do a gaggle like this with President Trump, somebody asks him about Epstein. So he's been answering questions about Epstein.
Not under oath.
But, well, has Bill Clinton ever answered any questions on Epstein or Hillary Clinton? So this is going to be a new opportunity, and we'll go from there.
In the meantime, there are still more Epstein files to be released. The Department of Justice says it has produced about 50% of all the files in its possession, even though the law required that everything be released by more than a month ago. FBI and DOJ whistleblowers say that some of the files being held include images and videos of Donald Trump that are described as horrific. In other words, while there are brutal allegations against Trump already in the documents released so far, there's apparently more evidence that may exist than just words and references in emails. Defending against a rape allegation by saying the statement is an unproven accusation, well, that's one thing. Claiming a video or photograph is false? Stay tuned. By the way, Trump administration federal agents who recently pointed their guns at an unarmed woman are now getting blasted by cable news hosts.
Look at them! In America, this is happening. This is still happening in your country.
And that is the reaction of MS Now's Joe Scarborough to one of the latest videos of federal agents in Minnesota.
Look at these thugs. Look, and he comes out with a gun, and he gets in front of the car. They're pointing the gun. They're telling her to come out. They're yelling at her. So what does she do? She's desperately calling the police, desperately asking people to call 911. She's not called. Look at this guy in front of the car.
The gun.
Get trained. Get trained before you draw your gun, you idiot.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Tom, who wrote, "This is what tax money is being used for instead of health care? What the F?" Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump panicking as the Epstein files get more disturbing. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.